All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Ajaba, and I am the director of the Michigan Department of Transportation. Today, we're here to celebrate a major milestone in the history of the I-375 freeway. To me, this event marks the beginning of the end of the I-375 freeway as we know it now. Thank you, Secretary Buttigieg, Governor Whitmer, Mayor Duggan, and 375 neighbors who are here today to celebrate this significant project development. I cannot overstate how thankful I am for this grant and how much it means to me and my colleagues that USDOT recognizes the value this project will bring to the community as we acknowledge mistakes of the past, reconnect neighborhoods, and spur economic growth in the corridor. And thank you to my colleagues at MDOT. This has been a project long time coming. We started this journey in 2014, especially Metro Region Engineer Kim Webb, who is here today, and the project manager John Lurie, who unfortunately could not be here with us. Now I will hand it over to Mayor Duggan.
All right. Well, this is a day the Detroit community has been waiting for a long time. I've been advocating for 6 years to fill in this ditch and knit this city back together. And the planning staff in the city have had many conversations with the neighbors in the area on their vision. We know the history. Detroit's been divided by this freeway for nearly 70 years. The motivations in wiping out Paradise Valley and Black Bottom in the 50s are well known, but nobody could have imagined the pain would still last 70 years later. And so we started advocating, the neighbors started advocating, and ultimately we had a breakthrough. Pete Buttigieg became the transportation secretary, Gretchen Whitmer appointed Paul Ajama as MDOT director, and the governor came together, and in March, it's amazing how complicated it is to remove a federal freeway. They were meant to be put in, they weren't meant to be taken out, but finally in March, we got the important designation, the finding of no significant impact, which cleared the way for us to do it. Then the question became, how do you pay for it? And it turned out the governor was so busy fixing the damn roads, as we've all seen from the cones all over, that the kind of money that we needed to get this project started just wasn't available. Michigan was just too far behind on the infrastructure side. And we were looking at this project starting in 2027. And so I think it was about the week after Pete Buttigieg became the transportation secretary, the Governor Whitmer said, we're going to lobby this thing together. We're going to make this our number one priority. And the state and the city together put together what I believe is a very strong application. And with the announcement today, we are going to be able to move this project forward from 2027 to 2025 in the construction. A lot of work still needs to be done in the design. But our friends here sped this up 2 years. So it's time to fill in the ditch. It's time to re-knit this community, and I'm really pleased we're moving forward today. And somebody who will be personally affected by it, and a longtime advocate, a resident in the neighborhood, and somebody who's been a part of building affordable housing and projects in the city of Detroit for a while. I want you to hear from the voice of somebody who lives here. Please welcome Izebe Nnamdi. Izebe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, as he mentioned, my name is Izebe Nnamdi, and I am a resident of Lafayette Park. I'm an educator within the city. I'm an art enthusiast and developer. And it is with great pride that to witness our civic leadership coming together to champion behind providing accessibility, reconnecting disenfranchised communities, and uplifting our economic development initiatives. This historic project presents tremendous opportunity for inclusive development and for forging a physical connection that has been severed decades ago, disrupting and displacing thriving communities. We look forward to continuing to work with all of our leadership to uplift the city of Detroit's history while paving the way for our greater future. And it's with great pleasure that I am now able to introduce to you Lieutenant Gilchrist.
All right, good morning, everyone. I am so proud to be here. This project is personal to me. I spent the first half of my childhood in the Elmwood Park neighborhood in the historic community of Black Bottom. And so as a person who's the son of this community, it really speaks volumes about what a difference leadership can make. You know, the truth is, it was a set of decisions by a set of people who were in power, who excluded the residents who made up this community, that made the choice to construct this freeway and deconstruct our community. But today's leadership, we have the mayor, we have Governor Whitmer, Secretary Buttigieg, Director Ajaba, and Izebe representing this community. We show that a different set of leaders, a different set of people can come together and make a different set of choices with a different set of priorities that center connecting our communities, that center equitable access to opportunity, that center justice. And that is what this project represents. Don't let anyone tell you that an infrastructure project has nothing to do with people. This project is all about people, creating access to opportunity, entrepreneurs who can dream and have their businesses exist right here in their neighborhood, adjacent to the thriving mecca that is downtown Detroit. This represents what the momentum that the city of Detroit is already building, and it's been recognized globally. Everyone from Time Magazine to the startup Genome has said that Detroit is the place to be to make things happen. And when, as the mayor said, fill in this dish, I like that. When we fill in this dish, when we fix this divot, when we create the connections that our community has always demanded and deserved, we create opportunity that we can only imagine about what it unlocks. So I am so excited to be part of this leadership team and to work alongside the residents of this community and of this city to deliver value for this state more than this freeway ever has delivered for our people. And so it is with that I am so now privileged to be able to introduce to you a visionary leader who is all about making sure that infrastructure supports people, supports productivity, supports our economy, and supports our potential. And that is the governor of the great state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm awfully pleased to be here. As Mayor Duggan often likes to say, it's been a long time since the city of Detroit had a mayor, a governor, and a president who are all on the same page when it comes to delivering for the people of Detroit. And I think this is just one more example of why that matters and what we are capable of when we work together. Today we're celebrating a $104 million grant that we won to replace I-375. And this project will support local businesses, create good paying jobs, reconnect communities that were split over 50 years ago. And I'm so grateful that Secretary Buttigieg is here. I know he will give comments and perhaps give us a little more insight as to how competitive this process was and how fortunate we are to be one of the big winners, because these are not unique to Detroit. Issues like this cropped up all across the United States. And so the fact that we're able to move forward together here in Detroit is a big deal. When it was built, I-375 paved through two prosperous black communities, Black Bottom and Paradise Valley. And the unjust decision displaced 130,000 Michiganders. It uprooted hundreds of businesses and dozens of houses of worship. It severely impacted the local economy, wiping out years of generational wealth. We cannot change the past, but what we can do is work together to build a more equitable future. And that's exactly what we're doing today. That's what this is really all about. With community input every step of the way, we're going to replace this mile of concrete with new street-level boulevard beginning south of I-75 interchange all the way to Atwater Street. Now, the new road will become a part of the city's existing grid, creating a smooth flow of traffic by connecting the riverfront, Eastern Market, and Brush Park. It'll be a mile of economic opportunity with accessible space for small business storefronts, affordable housing, and so much more. And replacing I-375 will reconnect neighborhoods in Detroit. It'll improve quality of life. and build on the city's growing momentum. Earlier this year, we completed our environmental review, and now with funding in place, we can move forward. As I'm sure you may have heard, I'm pretty passionate about infrastructure. Since I took office through the end of this year, we've fixed 16,000 lane miles of road and 1,200 bridges. We got it done without raising taxes. And the $3.5 billion Rebuilding Michigan bond plan to fix vital economic corridors supports 45,000 jobs. The bipartisan Building Michigan Together plan I signed earlier this year was the largest one-time investment in infrastructure in state history. 4 bipartisan budgets included fixing 100 local bridges and improving critical thoroughfares like Mound Road in Macomb County. And earlier today, we unveiled our statewide future mobility plan, laying out a detailed strategy in workforce development, infrastructure, and economic tools so that we can remain a global leader in mobility. When we build up infrastructure, we help people go to work, help them run errands, drop their kids off at school safely. Businesses can move people and goods around more effectively, and tourists can explore everything that Pure Michigan has to offer. So today's I-375 grant is just the latest sign that Michigan is on the move. We are tough, we have faced down once-in-a-century crises and challenges, and we work smarter. In 4 years, we've gotten 4 balanced budgets done. We didn't raise taxes by a dime. We paid down $14 billion in debt and brought our rainy day fund to an all-time high of $1.6 billion. So we can be a model for bipartisanship, not a word we see often enough these days. We've made historic investments in education from preschool to post-secondary. We've cut taxes for small businesses. We've gotten a lot done across the aisle. But to make sure that Michigan is competitive, we have to be a state where every person has real opportunity and protection and respect under the law. That is women, that is the LGBTQ plus community, that is people of color, that is workers' rights, that is voting rights. This is important. But today is a celebration of what we are capable of when we work together. It is an honor to be hosting Secretary Buttigieg here. He was at the auto show with us yesterday. He was here in Detroit last night, and he was working to solve and preclude a strike in railroads across the country, which is front and center for so many businesses located here in Michigan. We are fortunate to have a leader like Secretary Buttigieg focusing all of his talents on keeping things running, keeping people safe, and rebuilding the United States of America. So please join me in welcoming one of our newest Michiganders, Pete Buttigieg, to the microphone.
Well, thank you so much, Governor. Before we begin, I just want to speak briefly to the news of the day and express my appreciation to all of the parties that stayed at the table and got to a result preventing the shutdown of our rail system that would have been devastating for our economy. Not a lot of us slept much last night, but we got good news into the wee hours of the morning and are so pleased that result has been reached. My department continues to work to make sure that any of the impacts on service that happen just from the preparation for the possibility of a shutdown works through the system, and will continue to support rail operators through the weekend as everything gets back fully on track. So having said that, so pleased to be here in Detroit. We had a great visit yesterday with the president at the Detroit Auto Show, and it's so great to be with leaders who understand the importance of infrastructure. Director Ajba, I know we are keeping you very busy, and we'll continue to and appreciate what you and your colleagues are doing. Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, great being with you on the floor of the auto show. Appreciate being reunited with you. Isbeh, thank you for what you and your fellow neighbors have done to demonstrate that when we're talking about roads and bridges, most importantly, we're talking about people and businesses and the opportunity that represents. Mayor Duggan, you have so much to be proud of in what is happening in the city, the inclusive growth that you were fostering, and we're so glad to be a partner. And he would not leave me alone about this and many other projects, so know that you have a strong advocate. And I want to congratulate the governor on the extraordinary results that her administration has been achieving here in Michigan, including, importantly, being able to fix the damn roads, as she so often says, and look to the future when it comes to the infrastructure needs of this state. I have to tell you, when you have state leadership that understands the importance of investing in transportation infrastructure, and working with local leaders and local communities, that makes it that much easier for us at the federal level to be a good partner. And we welcome that partnership and think it's going to continue leading to great things. So congratulations, Governor. And yes, having married into this state, it's also a pleasure to be here, especially on a good news day. I've been on the road a lot. Especially just in the time since I was last here. We've been visiting just a handful of the hundreds of new projects that we've been supporting across America, made possible through the President's bipartisan infrastructure law. We are improving capacity at ports in Tampa and Los Angeles. We're making it safer for drivers and people who walk and bike, and railroads in Sandusky, Ohio. We're modernizing airports from Houston to Spokane. We're supporting economic development from small communities like Berlin, New Hampshire, to places like Minneapolis. And after years or even decades of frustration, as there was talk of infrastructure promises and infrastructure weeks that never materialized, we're thrilled that we are now seeing not just the legislation signed, as we did last year, but checks and funding signed off on this year to get projects in motion. And we're delighted to see shovels starting to go into the ground and dirt starting to fly. Today is a very important day for building on that momentum. 26 communities around the country, including right here in Detroit, are getting good news. And it's especially meaningful to see what that good news is going to mean here. As the governor knows, fixing the damn roads means that unglamorous work of filling potholes and repaving, and there's been a lot of that just to make sure the existing right-of-way is in a state of good repair. But often it goes literally deeper than that. It means making sure we are smart about the future and recognize some of the mistakes of the past. Sometimes fixing the damn roads means facing the repercussions of how the roads were originally built, who was included in that process and who was not, who was empowered and who was displaced. And when a generation's old piece of infrastructure comes to the end of its useful life, it requires us to decide in our time whether we're just going to put things back exactly as they were or whether we're going to build back better. And we know that some of the planners and politicians behind decisions in the past built roads like this one through the heart of vibrant, populated communities, sometimes even in an effort to reinforce segregation, sometimes simply because the people who lived there did not have the power to resist and force change. Here in Detroit, when I-375 was built in 1964, they literally bulldozed the neighborhoods of Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, displacing so many mostly black Detroiters. And now this freeway, a generation later, serves to divide communities, primarily communities of color and low-income communities, from the central business district, the recreational areas, and other great assets downtown. And the freeway design is actually contributing to worse congestion and more traffic crashes on roads nearby. The purpose of transportation is to connect. But we have seen examples in many communities, including here, where an infrastructure decision serves to divide. And we raise this issue not to wallow in it, but to challenge ourselves to do something about it. And now we are putting our money where our mouth is. Governor Whitmer, Mayor Duggan, local advocates, the congressional delegation have supported the application for federal grant funding to fix this, and then did exactly what good advocates should do, which is kept pounding on the door, explaining the difference that this would make in the community, and making sure that this got every full and fair consideration in the process. And the result of that is that today I'm delighted to officially announce that the Department of Transportation is awarding $100 million to transform I-375 to reunite this part of Detroit to a connected, thriving community. This is a very big deal, a long time in the making, and it's going to mean that residents can move more quickly, more easily get between their neighborhoods and opportunities, more safely walk, bike, and drive in their city. And I just love I think it's a little bit poetic, having been at the auto show yesterday, to think about how those great American-made cars are going to be rolling on beautiful American streets like the boulevard that's going to be created here. It's going to foster more equitable economic growth and community wealth-building efforts. It's going to use green infrastructure, like rain gardens and pervious pavement, that plays a very important role in preventing runoff from floodwaters from reaching Detroit's water supply. So it's an important part of the commitment to environmental justice as well. And reflecting what I'd like to think of as Midwestern values around being responsible with our dollars. This project is going to save the state a significant amount of taxpayer money every year, because that street level boulevard design is going to cost less to maintain than this current sunken freeway with 15 bridges having to go over it. So, if all of this sounds like a big win for the entire community, as it is, it's because it was designed in a way that had so much community input and so much community support. And this is part of a program called Infra, where we have over $1.5 billion going into grant awards across the country, announced today, to build that world-leading transportation system, strengthen supply chains, create jobs, advance equity, and improve economic opportunity. Now, thanks to the President's infrastructure package, which was supported by Senator Stabenow, Senator Peters, and so many members of your House delegation here, we're able to say yes to more projects than we ever have before in the history of this program. But as I shared with the governor yesterday, and I want everybody to understand, even with that added funding, this was an extremely competitive round. We got over $26 billion worth of applications for the $1.5 billion that we were able to award. And what that means is, for the 26 communities that are getting this good news today, including Detroit, it reflects the clear and compelling value to the community that those winning projects demonstrated. And again, that alignment between state leaders and local leaders and community leaders is a very important part of what makes it possible for us to come in and be supportive with federal dollars. Now, tempted as I am to walk you through every one of those projects, I will behave myself and stay brief, but I just want to give you a flavor of what we're doing with some of these. So, to strengthen supply chains and lower the cost of shipping, we are upgrading tens of thousands of feet of track on a 100-year-old elevated freight line that runs through central Chicago, constructing a new facility at the Port of Philadelphia, improving highways that are critical corridors for trucks in Clear Creek County, Colorado, and the Twin Cities in Minnesota. We're improving safety for truck drivers, and all drivers really, by building new truck parking, a major issue that we're seeing in our supply chains, in Florida and Tennessee, and we're repairing bridges in Washington State, in Wisconsin, and in Kentucky. And we're making roads safer for people to walk or bike in Baton Rouge, and adding a dedicated 6-mile bus rapid transit line there so people can more easily get to where they need to go. This is, of course, not just about building roads. This is also about building lives and livelihoods. And so we're especially excited about the good-paying jobs and the many good-paying union jobs that will be created through this infrastructure work. And I'm thankful in advance to all of the workers, all of the trades, all of the professionals who, no pressure, but who I expect to demonstrate a national model of success with the delivery of this project. And it's part of an extraordinary year that we're having as the President keeps promise after promise with the infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS bill, lowering costs for Americans and supporting more manufacturing jobs right here in the U.S. So Detroit, Michigan, you have a lot to be proud of. We are thrilled to partner with you, and I just couldn't be more delighted to congratulate you on this successful application. Thank you again, and congratulations. I think we have a little bit of time for media questions. My colleague Danny, if I can, will quarterback that, and we'll take it away. Yeah. Well, you know, from the beginning, our message to the parties has been the importance of coming together, and that meant everybody had to move. Secretary Walsh physically gathered the different parties at the Department of Labor and was staying in contact with them as well as with the White House. Secretary Vilsack and I were communicating with some of the different players involved, urging them on, talking about what it might take to find that deal space. And I would say somewhere between midnight and 4 in the morning, I started seeing signs, I think we all did, of a positive turn in those talks. And we're delighted to be able to see that official announcement go out around 5 a.m. this morning from Secretary Walsh. That's right. Let's talk about this in two ways. First of all, the wealth that needs to be created and will be created for the same underserved and overburdened communities that have been held back by this highway design and were displaced in the first place. The connection to the economic opportunity downtown, the vibrancy that comes with a great street design, what that's going to mean for opportunity for the small business and for quality of life here. But also the projects themselves represent an extraordinary opportunity to build generational wealth. And across the administration, we are, and certainly across all of the activities of my department, we are engaging minority businesses. We're engaging labor to make sure that more workers who historically maybe haven't had access to those great, good-paying union building trades jobs that are associated with this have every opportunity to thrive, because that's an important part of how we're going to build a diverse middle class thriving for the future.
So, let me start with the question you asked, because it's a good one. What happens from where we are sitting to here to who participates in the development? Because this is going to be one of the most successful development stretches anywhere in America. But there are 4 steps between where we are today and where we get there. First, the design has to be finalized, which is where the money is going to go. We need to know the exact dimensions. Are we talking about 100-foot stretches or 300-foot stretches of development? That design is going to be finalized over the next year or two. Second, attention is going to be shifted to Detroit City Council, the members who are here, because council is going to have to make zoning decisions. And I am certain they are going to have extensive public engagement on how this new development land gets zoned. And I can tell you for certain, for what I've heard from Izibe and her neighbors, that the folks in Lafayette Park do not want high-rise office buildings sitting right here. There's going to have to be a plan for mixed-use development. Third, the U.S. Department of Transportation has to decide that once we've come up to grade level, the extra land is surplus, and assign it back to the state of Michigan. And then fourth, the governor at that point will take the lead in how it gets developed. And she and I are already talking about the fact that once we have city council approval, we know where the planning grids are, we're going to have a process to make sure that the individuals who benefit from the wealth that's going to be created here reflect this community. So it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. I'd encourage people to engage with city council on the planning and zoning process, which will be coming forward, and then what the state would do when they get the property. I know the governor has a lot of thoughts about.
I think that wasn't actually my question.
Okay.
The question is about the actual site
Yeah.
where we're standing right here today. Is there any coincidence about it? You probably know, Mr. Mayor, others probably know that this was the groundbreaking site that Mayor Mariani set forth the I-375 groundbreaking. Right here where we stand.
Yeah.
Did that play into the site selection?
Yeah, it does, and you know the people who know the history know that this wasn't just a one-off. 375 wiped out Hastings Street, but the Cobo renewal, which we now know as Lafayette Park, wiped out the housing in Black Bottom all the way over. The two together, and then the wiping out of Paradise Valley to the north of Gratiot, really did this. And so, yes, we've come here today to say we're going to re-knit this community at the site of a division that started 60 or 70 years ago.
Does the United States and the state of Michigan need to do more to reckon with racist
Well, that's exactly what we have the opportunity to address right now. The bipartisan infrastructure package contained a dedicated fund, first of its kind, for reconnecting communities, $1 billion for the purpose of knitting together places that have been divided by infrastructure decisions of the past. And I'll tell you, everywhere I go, it doesn't matter big community or small, north, south, east, west, when I start raising this issue, this question of a piece of infrastructure that divides, you can see in people's faces they're picturing the one that's happened to their community. Sometimes an interchange, sometimes a freeway, sometimes a railway. The very fact that we have the phrase wrong side of the tracks in our expressions tells you about this history. What excites me about today's announcement is we're saying this is not just how one dedicated program, which is not the one funding this project, ought to work. This is a good use of infrastructure resources writ large, because it is serving the most important function of transportation, which is to connect. Again, we're not raising these issues to make everybody feel bad. We're raising these issues to insist that they be fixed. And it's why we're not just bringing, this isn't just a history lesson. This is $100 million to make it better. And we're proud of the local partners who have seen that and brought us an opportunity to make that a reality. So I would say that this is a reparative process. And at the same time, we have to recognize that some of the people, a generation of people who got displaced, not all of them are even here to see this good news. But when you look at both the opportunity for the neighborhood and the opportunities for business owners and workers, many of whom will come from communities of color that directly today live with the results of those decisions from 1964, that has material reparative value as well as benefiting the community as just good infrastructure policy.
So we're grateful that we're getting these federal dollars. $104 million is probably, I can't speak to what all the sizes of the other grants are, but I think that this is probably one of the bigger ones. It gives us the chance to do something that we've all wanted to do, had on our list of things that I think are symbolic of understanding a painful history and building a future that is equitable, that creates opportunity, that is inclusive in a way that has informed each step that we've taken and will continue to do so. As the mayor laid out, there are a lot of different steps that we got to take together going forward, but whether it is the record resources that we're putting into rebuilding our infrastructure across the state, or it is the Rebuilding Michigan Together plan, which is rebuilding water infrastructure on top of the roads and bridges that we see and dams every day, we're making long overdue huge investments in infrastructure right now. We've got to continue this work. It doesn't stop with a project. It doesn't stop with a part of the state. This is something we're doing statewide. But this is a moment that is unique for this city, that is important for this community, and that everyone in Michigan is going to benefit from because of the partnership, the municipal, the state, and the federal level.
So I'll let the state or local leaders speak to how that specifically works on the ground. But what I'll say is, to us as an administration, this is a priority. And I've been engaging with the business community, with the minority business community, with other government agencies like the SBA that does a lot of work here. Matter of fact, right now, we're revamping the DBE rule for our department to try to make sure there's less red tape for businesses handling certification and more clarity and accountability in terms of things like the directory and being able to not just to use the businesses that are there, but to grow the capacity that is there, because we have that much in terms of new resources moving through the economy. So we are very committed to this, and we will follow up with all of our project sponsors to see how it's going. Well, look, we're most excited about projects that meet many of our policy goals at the same time. In this case, safety, economic growth, equity. I think there's even some climate benefit associated with the improvements that are going to be made here. unlocking one of the rarest of things, which is the creation of new land in the heart of a city. It's not something you get to do every day, but in effect, it's part of what will happen when the land is better used. So the idea is that this will, of course, benefit the people in this immediate area, in this immediate neighborhood, but also makes for a more vibrant and energetic and inclusive economy that I think will be to the benefit of the entire city and state. And our hope is that, again, no pressure, but our hope is that this will be a model that other communities can look to in terms of how to get this right and who can benefit the most. All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great.